Hello again, all my friends, all my audience. Today, again, we are hosting and we are sitting with one of the leaders in terms of sustainability and one of the visionaries, people who are trying to make difference in understanding the value of sustainability and how really we deliver the meaning of sustainability in our community. Today, I will talk, let's say, I don't want to always use hosting because sitting with amazing people like Rhona is like sitting in small, sofa, as we call our podcast, the green sofa, and she make all this fancy technical concept accessible and simple to understand with the real value of this kind of concept. So today I will say hi, Rhona. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as usual, I am letting the mic to my guest and tell them to talk who they are.
Okay.
Whatever you want to say, you want to talk to the audience as you as an expertise or as a normal person, individual. Just say that that's me. This is me.
So I think I'll just start by saying that I think that what would be a great topic today would be to try and bring this down to a personal level, to sort of make it accessible to a wider audience and sort of recognize that there's a role for corporates and business and governments, but that I think some of your listeners or many of your listeners in your audience would be interested to sort of maybe be a little bit more connected to, as you said, the sort of simpler language and the simpler
to themselves
concept
as the
to
individual.
themselves, what they can do. So a little bit about me, Rhona Hunter,
please.
And I have I've actually been in this space for a long time. It's been I'm an environmental engineer, so I came at it from I'd say the technical side of engineering and science and the environment within sustainability. And over the course of my career, it's really been quite broad and quite diverse in terms of how that's been applied. It's been applied within the sort of the governance and the policy side. It's been applied within the sort of a corporate business perspective, communities and the social needs, etc. So I really feel privileged, and I think the value that I bring to these conversations is one that is based in a full spectrum of the sustainability sort of mandate, going back to really solid science and what that means.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting how your background as a technical, as an engineering, as a scientist, and what I am emphasizing on this point, how you're delivering this talk into much personal and individual. Yeah. I'm happy to host you again to this session, and I'm always asking the same concept question about from your point of view, sustainability. Now, I can say it's a new term if we're talking about the MENA area. The last, say 5 years, 6 years, people individually, I'm not talking about business and corporate level, start hearing these words too many times, and they can even understand it from different perspective. Everyone they met them, they give them different concept of what does meaning sustainability. So from you as an engineering, as a technical, as a lady who always contribute as a corporate leadership concept, what is sustainability from you to simple definition to the individual, to the people to understand it, not from the perspective of energy or perspective of, circle economy or perspective of technical,
And I think that it's a really important question to ask, because sustainability means something different to just about everybody who uses the word. And I think that that's part of the opportunity as well as the challenge. And so sometimes you'll walk into a room and, someone will be talking about sustainability, and they're talking, especially in today's environment, they're talking purely about decarbonization and climate. I'd say that in my profession and my experience, that's a relatively new conversation. When we were talking about sustainability, and I sort of wanted to say, new. This was this book, Our Common Future.
That's why I always say,
Right?
talking to you, I cannot be bored, because every time you bring something, I'm happy you share this book.
1987.
Oh my
and
God.
This was sort of the first time that the concept of sustainability was
1997.
1987.
87.
Yeah.
Okay.
This concept of sustainability was sort of brought forward within the sort of culture and sort of everyday language. It had been, I think, in academics had been a concept, but it's been around for a while, and it's morphed into various different things. So when I think about what sustainability is, when again going back to the individual, it comes down to, how do you think of yourself as a family business? I have a family business, and my goal in my family business is to ensure that the next generation, G2, the next generation, G3, G4, G5, so subsequent generations, which are going to become, in most cases, more people, have the same quality of life and have the same opportunities as I do today.
So it's a culture. Sustainability is a culture.
It is a culture. It's around, how do I build a business today, and how do I operate a business? And I say business, but I'm saying that loosely in terms of me as an individual, because when we think about ourselves, we sort of, I think about our community around us, and that can be a family, it can be our friends, it can be the sort of social network that we sit in. But how do I build a life that allows the next generation and the next generation and the next generation to have the same opportunities and the same quality of life and the same ability to succeed and have, achieve their goals as today. And that's sort of the overriding principle of sustainability. When you break it down a bit more, it tends to sit within things such as, what are the social needs? How do I be a good person to the people around me and the communities around me? How do I care about others? Care. And I think care is that element that is at the core of sustainability. How do I value care in what I do? Care for people, care for community, care for the environment, care for how I function in the world. So I think that at its core, from a personal standpoint, I like to think of it as being, how do I care? How do I manifest caring in the world that I touch and I'm involved with?
Oh my God. When you are saying all this, concept, you are delivering really how we are sustainable. We are the core, the center of sustainability. You said social need. I have to care. So to meet my social needs as the community, what the community or the country or the infrastructure around me, what I need is really, I need to be care about it. How the way I am consuming all these needs. Yeah. And as you said, a culture. So it's something people don't feel like we make different when we think in a way like we should care how we do.
Yeah. And I think it makes it a little bit more accessible to people if we think of it in simple terms.
All right.
And so one of the, if we sort of unpack it a bit more, if we were to say, well, what does care look like in my daily life? And I say, well, I think do with less.
Do with less.
Do with less. So whether it's, the simple things, instead of having the water running when you brush your teeth, turn the water off when you brush your teeth. You're still brushing your teeth, but you're doing it with less water, right? So
right.
It's, do I, for instance, at home, these are simple things,
yes.
but it's about caring. I ran my dishwasher. I don't have anybody who does my dishes, so I have a dishwasher. And instead of letting it go on the dry cycle, particularly in this part of the world,
yes.
I just turn it off and I open up the dishwasher and it dries by itself. so I can do with less. So when you start to put a layer of, well, how do I care about how much I consume? How do I care about what my, the decisions I make and things that I buy? And those are the sort of, I think, classical ones. But then again, how do I care about the people around me? How do I make sure that, sustainability is also, when you think about the individual, it's how do I budget? How do I build my own personal business to be sustainable? Doing more, doing less, doing with less. How do I make sure that I have money in the bank, or that I've made smart investments, or that, I might not be making a lot of money, but I have the ability to say, well, I'm going to take 1% of that off and I'm going to put it into the bank because I'm going to build up some equity. So it's thinking about how to do with less, and also plan for a future that you want to be as
family, your generation, as they say.
Yeah.
Today I had a funny story, by the way. I stopped in the gas station and I went to buy some stuff from the supermarket, and I met someone who said, the lady there, she tried to help him. She said, for that gentleman, do you need a plastic bag? He said, no, I don't need. So, my personality, I stepped to the conversation and I asked him, so do you believe that this plastic bag will help you to save the world? I want to see people how they evaluating what they are doing. Is it just follow what is they listening, or they really believe? And I was shocked really what his answer. He said, maybe it will not help, but currently I don't need that plastic.
Yeah.
So I am recalling what you said.
Yeah.
It's just what we need.
Yeah.
Do we need it?
Yeah. Do you need the
Yeah,
plastic
because
bag? You didn't need the plastic bag.
Yes, you're right.
But
because
culturally, we're like, you get a plastic bag.
Yeah, that's why I
Right?
told you. You are saying just two words. If we understand it well, we will deliver exactly what is sustainability is a culture. So all our old culture, or what we're raising, or what let's say some of the community's culture bringing to us, we don't need it.
Yeah.
So if you start building a right culture about sustainability, like this story, like this morning I had it, is when he said, no, the things I need, I know that I don't need it. Yeah. So he exactly know what he needs. So it's amazing.
Yeah. And I think that, if you go back in time, or if you go to places where people have less, there's often a sort of an argument, you could say, that they actually have more sustainability. The less they have, they are more sustainable in isolation. Unfortunately, nobody exists in isolation anymore.
Yeah.
So you can sort of see that in places where they're forced to have less, there can actually be some sense of a greater sense of doing with less.
Yeah, I'm really totally agree with you. Even they said having less is meaning having more happy life, because you will not have to stressful of being on your following the standards or doing this. This is another topic. If I can just because I believe you have amazing background in logistic and transportation and supply chain in particularly, because I think, and I believe how we start a conversation, and I met you when you was asking about supply chain investment. And how we could make it more, let's say, green supply chain. All of us know that transportation is one of the contributing in terms of carbon emissions, and it's having a high increasing, because we are doing in business, we are traveling as a people. It's our dynamic circle. We cannot stop going or traveling or doing the business. From your perspective, what is the core of having, let's say, I don't want to use decarbonization of the transportation, but I can say how we could understand really the supply chain of having a sustained logistic sector, and as a challenge, as a solution, as the gap nowadays. What do you think on that part?
So I think we have to be careful when we say sustainability,
Yeah,
because
again.
in this sense, I think we're talking about a lower carbon emissions supply chain, which is one part of sustainability. So if you look at the supply chain, which typically involves anywhere from a plane, a ship, a car, a truck, a railway, some parts of that supply chain, that transportation supply chain, are easier to decarbonize or make a lower emission than others. And unfortunately, the reason why the supply chain is such a focus in many conversations and sort of challenges around decarbonization is that both shipping and air transportation are considered hard to abate sectors, meaning that there is no current solution in place to readily adopt, and that there will need to be development of both the technology as well as a new infrastructure, massive new infrastructure to address those new technologies and systems that might take place. I think that, if we look at, cars will more than likely become electrical. That's fairly simple. There's now the cases there. The challenge is then the infrastructure.
And how much it costs us.
And
in terms of carbons and all of this,
Well, the life cycle cost analysis, or let's say the full circle analysis of an electric vehicle versus a diesel vehicle has been done.
Okay.
And the business cases are there that, it is actually an electric vehicle is better. You put all the factors in there, the electric vehicle is the better choice. So it's, and it's always a bit of a, I'd say, when people say, is the business case there? The challenge with any business case today that you might evaluate for a low carbon solution versus the existing status quo is that we're not paying for the cost of the existing status quo. And even if we were to put a cost of carbon on the existing systems, we are still not paying the price of the decisions that we made and the utilization and burning of hydrocarbons that we made for generations, the last 150 years. So we're sort of, in many cases, still not comparing apples to apples, but within even the existing, let's say, economic models and business cases that are out there, electric vehicles are the better choice. So it's going to be putting the infrastructure in place. That will take time, and that will require certainly an additional amount of electrical supply, the grid, renewables, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not,
again a supply chain.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Life
it's
cycle
up and downstream.
Again, yes.
More challenging if you go to heavy duty trucks. I mean, we see here on the roads here lots and lots of trucks. A little bit more challenging. Probably, again, you're going to see over the course of time, you'll see a variation of adoptions. Some will be electrical, depending on its use. Some will be natural gas. And there may be some, some
hydrogen.
Hydrogen, the case for a hydrogen combustion engine is, again, it depends. Are you really getting ahead of the game or not?
Yeah.
Some of the thought leaders are pretty adamant around the fact that, it really only has an applicability in somewhere like shipping, where you really have very few other options. Electrical rail is absolutely going to be continue to be a growth sector for transporting goods, and I think you see some countries actually investing in their rail because they see that as being a much more sustainable transportation mechanism than building more roads and trucks on roads. And then you get to the two hard ones, which is planes and
is the
ships,
challenge. And
right?
actually, this is where a lot of people start the scenario of the carbon credit and offset and all of this, because it's a challenging.
Yeah.
What's the big challenges in terms of that, do you think? Is the fuel itself or the concept?
Well,
one thing is there.
There just isn't currently with the current with the current supply of biodiesel, which is what some of the sustainable aviation fuels are relying on to replace traditional jet fuels in aviation, there just isn't enough currently in the marketplace to replace all of the existing, demand. So there's a big question, and I fully transparently, I'm not an expert in aviation, so I don't know what the current sort of planning and horizon is for the aviation sector, but there are conglomerates and there are lots of groups working on it because, again, much like shipping, which I'm a bit more familiar with, is that the solution is not going to be one airline is going to come up with a solution because you have to have the infrastructure in place to be able to supply, and that's not possible for one airline to put in place. And so there will be a huge amount of collaboration required. And I think that the one thing that I want to emphasize, and again, it's not at the individual level, but it's certainly at the corporate level very, very strongly, in my opinion, is the need to collaborate, is that we're going to have to step outside of our comfort zones around the traditional model of competition and work more towards the collaboration and caring. If we care about this business being sustainable, meaning it's going to be here generations from now, and it's going to be, a profitable business in an economy that exists where people are going to be able to afford to buy my product, then I have to actually care about more than just my profits today. And I have to start to look at my ecosystem and my competitors and say, how are we going to work together and cooperate, right?
Yes, you're right. Yeah, it's really, as you said, we cannot see what we are doing if we don't have the right angle of how we are looking to the problem or to the angles of the things we are talking about. And as you said, now everybody is not looking as a team, as a collaboration. Everyone is working different department or sector or countries, or as you said, we are not racing to show just what we are thinking, but we should collaborate to see how we deliver what we are thinking together. Before I step, I know we am always focusing about the individual in my conversation, but I cannot let you escape today from your background in the shaping and all this history for innovation and all of this. You, Rhona, what is, let's say, you can say from technical perspective, it could be make a change in terms of decarbonization, the shipping sector, a specific technology, a methodology, approach, even investment in people could be. What is your...
So I think the shipping sector is doing some really great things. There are currently two global basically think tanks, one in Singapore, one in Copenhagen. And I think there's another one in the US that are pulling together all the stakeholders. And
it's like building a community.
Well, they're saying we can't solve this in isolation. So let's get our up and downstream stakeholders all at the table, and let's try and work together. And what they're doing is that they are funding and delivering content and making recommendations. I'm more familiar with the Maersk McKinney Moller Center for Zero Carbon Shipping, which is the one in Copenhagen, which is actually they're making recommendations in terms of what policy needs to be. They're making recommendations and predictions around what fuel mixes are going to be over a period of time. And more importantly, they're making all of the information that they are producing, all the research, all of the data that they're producing is publicly available.
Amazing. You are right. Hitting the point, which is the data and the information.
That's right. They're making it available. So you don't have to be a member of the center. You don't have to contribute financially to the center to have access to that information.
It's a newly one or just have
It's only 3 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is new.
It's amazing.
But this is an example of what I consider to be a successful model of how do you make sure that you are just transition, you know? How do you make sure that it's not just the big players who succeed in this, that you recognize that the market is diverse. There's many different sizes of players, different types of vessels, different types of shipping that's out there. And how do you make sure that you are bringing them along with you so that they also have the opportunity to succeed? Because this is it's a challenging time. When you buy a car, you might think that car is your car. Most people probably 3 to 5 years. If you keep the car for the entire its life, 25, 30 years, not many people keep the cars for 25 years, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But when you buy a ship, you're making an investment for 40 years.
Yeah.
So when you make an investment today in a vessel, you're basically committing to the technology that vessel has for the next 40 years. Yes, you can do retrofits and there's opportunities. So what some of the work that's happening is to say, well, we predict that this will be the technology that's going to be in place in 10 years' time. Therefore, when you design a vessel today, design for that adaptability. We don't have the technology today. We don't have the infrastructure today to allow that technology to be used, but we do anticipate. So if you're buying a new vessel today, make sure that vessel has the ability to be retrofitted to adapt to that new technology. And that's the kind of, it's not massively innovative.
I know, simple always could be the solution, the simplicity.
Sometimes the solutions, you have to be
prevented.
Flexibility, build resilience. Build resilience into your systems.
Yeah, it's led me to ask you this, Rhona. I know we are in GCC country in terms of oil and gas, we are exporting and importing a heavy amount, and we are in the center of this shipping. Do you believe, and also we are, all the eyes is to COP 28. Do you, let's say, have a great potential hopes on a specific program now, the UAE especially, or other country around, could have a future contributing in terms of decarbonization in the logistics sector? Or you hope you find something in COP 28, even if there is not something in your mind?
I think that the GCC area has phenomenal renewable energy potential. And because some of the future fuels like hydrogen and derivatives of hydrogen are best when they're green, they have the highest ability to, let's say, decarbonize
from the resource
use
itself, from the input.
When it's green, meaning it's made from renewable energy. I think that there's a fabulous connection there between the abundance of potential renewables in the GCC through particularly solar and its ability to provide hydrogen as a fuel stock for many potential uses of green hydrogen. So I do actually think, and I'm not alone. There's a lot of very smart people who are working on that as well.
Yeah, actually, you are right. Which is really it's make again. The individual is in the center. If we're talking about our resource in becoming this hub of renewable resources, we still need the skills. We need the power of the people. People, even private sector, believe on investment in this coming, let's say, generation energy. I would love to go back to the individual and ask the question, which is our last question for the session.
Okay.
What is your recommendation for the individual? How they can have, let's say, a guideline, as you said before, just build a culture. How they involving in becoming a real sustainable behavior people?
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendation, any guideline, assessment?
I think it's a harder ask than most people think. Particularly because your ability to make a decision is often dependent on what sorts of opportunities you have in the marketplace. So we all have the ability to say no to the plastic bag.
Yeah.
I carry in my bag, I carry a reusable bag. It goes with me everywhere. I'm rarely without my reusable bag. So I have an option, right?
Yeah.
Or if I don't have enough, I just throw it in my bag. So I do think that there are some easy wins, but I do think there's also a lot of difficulties in areas where you don't have as many opportunities. Recycling is something that in many parts of the world has been around for a long time. So it's part of the culture, it's part of the infrastructure, it's an acceptable outcome of an individual. You are not allowed to put more than, a 20-liter container of garbage on the curb a week. And if you need to do more, then you need to either pay extra or buy extra ability, or in some cases, they simply won't pick it up. So you are incentivized to reduce the amount. But we don't necessarily have that ability in all parts of the world. And I know that there are some people, and I go back to care. There's a nonprofit called now.here.group. And they have a mobile app which allows each individual to, in their everyday, basically set goals and objectives and to measure their successes around how they care and how they behave.
Oh, it's like a reminder, like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's sort of, and you can do it like, friendly competitions between your friends or your colleagues or
Involve
family
the
members.
community also.
So because it's digital, it's in an app format, you can link it to other people. You can join pledges. So you can say, oh, this is a pledge that's going on and I want to contribute to that. So,
help me with. Oh my God.
So it leads me to make, to make my individual daily decisions that allow me to behave in ways that are more sustainable.
Or even educate myself by sharing.
Exactly, educate
It's
myself.
amazing.
Yeah. So I do think that there are some, some good entrepreneurs out there who are beginning to look to say, how do we, instead of making it your responsibility, we tend to sort of within the sustainability world say, you as the consumer, you need to drive the people who you buy goods and services from. You are the one that has to, and people feel pressure around it.
Yes.
And some of the entrepreneurs out there are actually saying, well, no, actually, what we want to do is we want to go back to that core part of caring about ourselves, caring about others, caring about the earth. And we can make decisions on a daily basis that allows us to do that. And I think those are where we have some really big wins, because going back to culture, if we collectively understand what caring looks like and behave more caringly, we will by default have more sustainability in our lives.
I'm speechless to say it, really, because before I closed the session, I just want and recap what we have discussed here, Darli. I just want to let the camera for you, and I want you to say your message, since we are in a big season for the COP28, and I hope your message to the audience, to the listener, to the private sector, to yourself even, like any thoughts you want to share?
Yeah.
I will be happy to
Thank you for that opportunity. I think that the thing that is most important is to get educated. There is so much really, really good information out there that is wise and has easily to understand, digestible concepts. So if you can understand what's going on, then you are in a position to make decisions. Nobody makes good decisions by being forced to do things. People are much happier and I think much more sustainable in their decision making if they understand why they're doing it. So going back again to that sort of personalizing it, get educated, read a book, find out, Google best books on sustainability.
Yes.
Pick up one of them, read about it, find out maybe something that you didn't know, and then say, oh, well, what does that mean to me?
Yeah. How I can link it to
how
me.
can I link it to me? Yeah. If we can do that and the second thing I say is have some hope, because sometimes it feels really, really tough to have hope when we start to look at some of the numbers. But I think we need to all remain positive, and we need to remain optimistic, and we need to believe that we can actually do something to, I don't personally think we're going to reverse what we've done, but I think that we can avert catastrophe that if we don't do what we need to do, we will end up in. And I think that we have a huge survival instinct, and we will actually make the right decisions.
I believe, Rhona, you are touching all the needed in terms of understanding the sustainability. For this point, I just want to say to all audience, recapping what the things we discuss here, no pressure, be positive, and always educate yourself, because educating yourself and reading, attending these events, meeting a lot of people, listening to them will give you the right input to do your filtering yourself in your role, in finding what is your green potential to be part of the sustainability. And again, I'm recalling what Rhona said, just what we need is really, this is what we need. So I hope from this session, you could find how you can standardize or how you can determine what you really need. And for sure, we will not forget to share all the amazing information about the book that you bring it, the organization, and this amazing application, because it's really amazing how you could be developing your awareness, your education, your behavior from these small tools, from reading, from application, from speaking, and from talking. And even from watching one of our episodes and having this amazing guest with us. Yep. I hope you have a lovely day ahead or evening ahead. Bye-bye.